Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kyoto Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, the wait is almost over. In just 2 days, the Chargers will be kicking off versus the Los Angeles Rams in our first preseason game of the year. Now, I understand not everybody's super hype into the preseason like I am, but hey, I'm just excited to see my Bolts back out there on the field playing football. And to celebrate that, I'm dropping one of my favorite videos to produce every single season. Bolt fam, it is time for the 2023 record prediction video for the Chargers. Of course, we're going to be going over every single opponent, giving kind of some strengths and weaknesses with the Chargers and their opponents, as well as, of course, my record prediction in the win and loss column. This year is going to be pretty interesting, man. What do we call this year in terms of the video? The redemption, I think. This roster looking absolutely fantastic. So long as they can, knock on wood, stay healthy, I think this team's going to be a surprise for a lot of teams in the NFL. So it should be a very good one today. Now, before we do get started, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, with the preseason officially kicking off tonight. Now is the best time to jump into Underdog Fantasy. Get your feet wet, understand how to play on one of the best, I would say the best fantasy platform on the web. Get ready for the regular season. Lots of ways to participate. Season-long drafts, head-to-head, player versus player predictions. It's going to be a very fun season. Let's all jump in on it together. If you guys want to jump in on the action, use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100. It's a great way to support the channel and have a lot of fun along the way. Before we kick off our record prediction video, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action. Your 2023 Los Angeles Chargers record prediction video, hashtag the redemption. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, man. We got 17 teams to go over, 17 weeks, 17 games, 17 predictions to be made in this video, starting with the season opener, the Chargers versus Miami Dolphins. Very fun game to catch last season, of course. Oh, a director watch in this video. Director, if we'll be sharing with you guys which game I will be attending in person throughout this video. If you guys want a chance to meet up with me, just a little hashtag along the way there. But Miami Dolphins, great game last season. I would anticipate it's going to be a pretty interesting one this season as well. Of course, the 3 players that I think the Chargers should pay the most attention to, of course, there's more than that, but Tua, Tyreek, and Bradley Chubb, I would say, are very, very talented there. Of course, I would think of the Miami Dolphins in the modern NFL age right now as like the speed freak team, right? You got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. That combo is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams on their schedule this season. I think Tua, despite the fact that he's maybe not the best quarterback in terms of arm strength and accessing the deep part of the field to utilize those talents a lot, it doesn't take away from the fact that a Tyreek Hill, a Jalen Waddle can catch a pass underneath. Maybe Tua does, have 1 or 2 good throws in him per game and take it all the way to the house. And this is something that Tyreek Hill has done to the Chargers. He's haunted this team for several years, even back in his days as a Kansas City Chief. Now, the Chargers defensively, I feel they have a lot of pieces in order to help themselves out versus that combo, versus that speed, of course, which is also featured at the running back position. What they got A-Chain now, who came in as another speed back. Of course, you got Raheem Mostert. This team just has speed all over the roster. What the Chargers have in terms of, in my opinion, a nice counter is going to be that pass rush. Of course, Tua, he can scramble. I'm sure at this point they're really hoping that he does not do that, of course, given his injury history. But getting to the quarterback is going to allow less time for guys like Tyreek, Jalen Waddle to develop these big, game-breaking routes. And of course, the Chargers, so long as they're playing in a way where they're protecting themselves against that deep ball, protecting themselves against that speed, especially a Tyreek Hill, I think defensively they're looking pretty good. But that pass rush, in my opinion, is going to be very, very important to that. Now, speaking of pass rush, Bradley Chubb on the other side there. The Dolphins, I think, sneaky good defense. And it's one that I think the Chargers last season were able to kind of figure out. I do think they're going to be able to figure it out again in week 1 in the season, or I should say the home opener for the Chargers. So in week 1, I'm going to give you guys a prediction of Los Angeles Chargers 34, Miami Dolphins 27. And I'm going to tell you guys this right now. I think it's going to be a fun home opener. I think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. And I think this number I put specifically on this game, a 34-point home opener for the Chargers, which would be absolutely fantastic, reflects what I think is going to happen in terms of the immediate involvement of guys like Quentin Johnston, the new roles of a Mike Williams and a Keenan Allen, and then, of course, you're going to have your other weapons like Austin Eckler and Gerald Everett very much so involved. Should be a very fun game. I think the Chargers are going to open up this season with a bang. I think it's going to be a bit of a close game, kind of a shootout, but a lot of fun for Chargers fans to open up the year with. So that's your Week 1 prediction. Let's go ahead and move on to Week 2. The Chargers will be traveling to Tennessee to face the newly formed DeAndre Hopkins team of the Tennessee Titans. Now, this team, very interesting to me. I think it all starts at the top with their offense and, of course, their quarterback. Right now, we're not really sure what's going on out there. I think what we can all assume, and that's going to be a Ryan Tannehill, especially this early in the season, right? I think maybe we see things shaken up with Malik Willis, maybe even a Will Levis later down the line. But right now, I think the Chargers version of what they're going to be expecting for the Tennessee Titans is going to be led by a Ryan Tannehill. Now, that being said, this offense is going to be one that I think is going to be pretty sneaky good this season, right? Not even sneaky good, but I do think has the potential to develop into something very scary. Now, of course, having DeAndre Hopkins there, he's going to open up a lot of opportunity. This man has worked with a lot of subpar quarterbacks in his career. Making them look good was definitely a chore, and I think he's got the ability to do that with a Ryan Tannehill, especially even early in the season. But I do believe that this offense, for the most part, is going to do what they've always done the last, several seasons in the Derrick Henry era. They are going to ride King Henry into the ground. And what's especially scary is that the Chargers, not very good versus the run. And what's even scarier is that this is going to be a pretty fresh Derrick Henry we're going to have on our hands, all right? Last time we played the Titans, I think it was several weeks into the season. This time around, we're getting fresh legs King Henry. That's going to be pretty scary. The Chargers are going to have to find a way to slow him down, or in my opinion, the best way to fight fire is with fire. Try to outscore these guys and keep Ryan Tannehill out there trying to save the game with DeAndre Hopkins. If we can slow down that run game a bit, I do think the Chargers have a good chance at stifling the fires of the new Tennessee Titans offense. So my prediction for Week 2 is going to be Chargers 24, Tennessee Titans 28. I do think it's going to be a very tough one. I think, unfortunately for the Chargers in Week 2, traveling, their first away game, that offense with the Derrick Henry freshness is going to pay a big factor in this one. And I do think, unfortunately, with the Chargers not having proved yet that they can capture or contain the run like we have all been hoping, do maybe drop versus one of the best, maybe even the best running back in the league right now. All right, but don't get deterred, Bolt fam. Let's move on to Week 3. The Chargers taking on the Minnesota Vikings at Minnesota. Tough way to start the season. I understand. Very tough opponents all around. But this is going to be, once again, another game that I think, very similarly to the Week 1 Miami game, is going to be a lot of fun. What I mean by fun is that it almost feels like the Vikings, to me, at least watching as a casual NFL fan, the Vikings almost feel like the NFC version of the Chargers a little bit. Very fun offense. Of course, they don't have the quarterback power we do, but they do have, I would say, a high-powered offense. At times, a very sneaky good defense. And for the most part, their games are always pretty entertaining. Now, another thing that they have in common that, of course, I don't like mentioning is sometimes they spectacularly can drop the ball at the last second, and that can be very shocking, I'm sure, for its fans. Of course, Chargers fans absolutely understand how that feels, but at the same time, the games are always entertaining, and a lot of the times it's very high-scoring as well. You put both of these guys in the same room together, the Chargers and the Vikings, I think you're going to be in for a good time. Another kind of shootout potential here. The biggest thing I do want to remind Chargers fans of, though, with this particular team is going to be their defense. I think the Vikings, as good as their offense can be at times, which I think it's going to be very good. Their wide receivers, of course, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne. They got Addison in there now. At running back, I'm a huge Alexander Madison believer as well. That offense is going to be great, but their defense, in my opinion, has got some hitters on them too. So I think the Chargers at Minnesota Vikings is going to be a very fun game. And ultimately, my prediction is going to be for Week 3, Chargers just edging out the Vikings 33-31, bringing their record to 2-1 in the first 3 weeks. Definitely not bad with how steep this schedule looks to start things off. And I think this is one where the Chargers can fend off a good team and just edge them out point-wise. 33-31, I think that's going to be a very fun game. It's one that I have circled on my calendar as, hey, look at this one. This could be a fun one to watch. Next up, let's go ahead and move into Week 5. The Chargers will be facing their first division rival in the Vegas Raiders. Three of their top players here. Josh Jacobs, who of course is returning to the league. Was he the lead rusher last season? Very, very good running back last year. Very tough on the Chargers especially. You got Devontae Adams, in my opinion, again, a top, maybe wide receiver in the NFL, top 2 at least. Very good. And then of course Max Crosby on defense, who does cause nightmares for Chargers fans as well. The biggest thing that we got to watch out for with the Raiders is the fact that they are a division rival, a division opponent, because of course these games really can go either way, right? Of course, I think that the Raiders version this season with Jimmy Garoppolo is a little bit more underwhelming. If I were a Raiders fan, you have to ask yourself, how far are we going with Jimmy Garoppolo? What's the ceiling for these players with Jimmy Garoppolo? Is this the kind of player that can take us to the playoffs this season, really utilize a Devontae Adams? To those questions, I think kind of, maybe. But when you're going up against a defense like the Chargers are offering, with the offensive line that I would say is at best subpar, you're going to have a really, really scatterbrained and frightened Jimmy Garoppolo on your hands, I do. Because Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, feels more like a game manager, right? And with game managers, they don't like taking a lot of risks. And if you got a Joey Bosa, if you got a Khalil Mack or a Thule or a Morgan Fox screaming at you, his ability to extend plays and make something out of a bad situation, it doesn't feel like that's a strength of Jimmy Garoppolo. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe he's scrambling all over the place and buying time and getting his guys open. But for the most part, the Jimmy Garoppolo factor is something I weighed very heavily in with these matchups in my record prediction video. So, of course, my prediction for the first face-off between the Raiders, this time for the Chargers at home, I got a prediction of Chargers 25, Raiders 19. I think the Raiders have a decent amount of talent on the defensive side of the ball where they can kind of slow the Chargers down, maybe even bringing it in within one score, kind of making Chargers fans sweat a little bit. But in the end, I think the Chargers, in terms of when you're weighing the rosters, which both look pretty good, they do have the trump card, and that's going to be Justin Herbert at quarterback, and I think he'll be able to keep us ahead. And of course, like we were talking about with Derrick Henry in week 2, I don't know if we'd be able to stop King Henry with a really good offensive line. Josh Jacobs, I do think will be able to outscore the Raiders enough to try and limit his exposure versus the Bolts in week 4, all right? So let's go ahead and move on to week 5, which of course is going to be our bye week. Come on, NFL. Week 5? All right, it's not like, 12 weeks later we're going to be gassed hoping that we had a bye week to be spending in there. That's not going to happen this season. Don't like the placement of it, but I figured I would comment on it anyway. Let's move on to week 6. The Chargers will be taking on the Dallas Cowboys, former team of the Chargers, new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, and a team I got a little bit of a gripe with, right? A little bit of a grudge against, because the last time we played this team, I feel like that game was just outrageously, horribly reffed by the NFL officials. Let's hope to see a clean game this time. And I do think this time it's going to be a very interesting matchup for the Chargers. Very good team we're going up against in the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sure Kellen Moore is going to have all the praise for them as well, especially with what they're offering on both sides of the football. I would say very balanced team, not just in terms of talent, but in terms of how they will attack you on offense. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, two of the, I would say best players on their offense, but you can't forget Tony Pollard. You can't forget, Gallup. You can't forget a lot of the talent they have sprinkled all over, and especially some pieces on the offensive line too. Very, very nice football team. The Kellen Moore, I would say, advice to counter that team would definitely be, in my opinion, to slow down the run as much as you can. Of course, I think Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are capable of carrying this team through the air as well, but that's a big factor, the Kellen Moore offense. I think a lot of us forget. The run is very, very important. It's something that he established with the Dallas Cowboys, and I think it's going to be something the Chargers heavily need to focus on this season. Now, the big question is, have the Chargers figured out the run defense yet? Because we're going up against we're in week 6 now with the bye week. We're going up against some pretty good running backs. My answer for that is, I'm not sure. And that's going to play a big part in my record prediction here. So I have the Chargers in week 6 versus the Dallas Cowboys. Chargers 38, Cowboys 31. This is going to be a game where, again, I don't know if we figured it out versus the run, but I think the Chargers are capable of outscoring them. And I think this would be a great game for Kellen Moore to flex on his former team that, hey, man, you guys should have at least, maybe consider me head coach or not, or paid me what you need to pay me, keep me around. This is where I'm taking my talents, and these are the kind of points we're going to be scoring on the weekly. That's the kind of big thing I think I'm expecting about this game. The offense, I think there's going to be something special in store versus his former team. And again, with the weapons that the Chargers have all over this roster, I think Kellen Moore is going to have a good idea of how to attack his former team as well. I think QJ is going to be very involved in this one. Some of the speedsters, maybe even a Darius Davis, you never know. Should be a pretty fun matchup there. This will bring the Chargers to 4-1 to start the season. Very, very strong start despite the difficult beginning of this schedule, in my opinion. But the Chargers, it's definitely not going to get any easier going forward either. Let's go ahead. Week 7 at Kansas City Chiefs is going to be, again, one of the first big tests of the Chargers this season. Can we take down the reigning Super Bowl champions? Have the Chargers reached a point yet where, with Kellen Moore, with Brandon Staley, with the pieces that they have assembled, have they found a way to dethrone the reigning champs? It's going to be tough, guys. And this is going to be the story of the Chargers for a minute, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs, as much as everyone hates to hear me say it, as much as everyone hates thinking about it, they're a very good team. The best team in the NFL right now. They proved it by winning the Super Bowl. The Chargers just so happen to be squished in the same division as them. And until the league decides to rearrange all of the divisions or whatever, the Chargers are going to have to figure out how to usurp the Chiefs somehow, how to dethrone the Chiefs. And I think you have the pieces to take them down potentially. I think you have the pieces to figure out a nice counter, but that doesn't change the fact that the Chiefs are a very talented team. And it's going to be very tough for the Chargers to dethrone them at some point. Now, again, I don't think it's impossible to take down the Chiefs. The Chargers have done it before. I do think they're capable of doing it this season, but it's a big ask, okay? And it's a big step. And I think as the Chargers prove to us in the future, if they can prove to us in the future that they are starting to take that turn, they are starting to play tug of war, with the crown of the AFC West, and we are seeing them figure out how to take down the Chiefs, that's when we start thinking it's going to be an end of a dynasty, right? I think the Chiefs right now are in a somewhat dynasty. I think that they look really, really crazy good, and they've been crazy good for several years now. The Chargers are going to have to find a way to leapfrog them. So right now, with their top 3 players, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, I think Chris Jones is a severely underrated player in the NFL. I'm going to go ahead and give a prediction of Chargers 27, Kansas City Chiefs 34. Chargers put up a really good fight, but again, ultimately, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, they're going to do what they're going to do. We're in Kansas City. Tough matchup. But again, respectable score for the Chargers as well, who I think are going to have a very nice offense to feature in this season. Now, after that loss, the Chargers will be heading back home to face against the Chicago Bears. And director watch alert, I will be attending this game in person. If you guys want to catch me there, I'll be in the pink lot. If you guys want to come hang out on Thunder Alley. So with this one, me being able to attend in person, Chargers, Week 7, Chicago Bears, they got some nice pieces out here, guys. Some pieces that I do think counter the Chargers pretty well. Justin Fields, one of the best rushing quarterbacks you're going to find in the NFL. Khalil Herbert, what does he have? Some of the craziest numbers in terms of yards per carry in their first couple of seasons in the NFL. I think he's got the potential to be an Alexander Madison kind of hype for me. I think he's going to be a very good piece for this team. And of course, Eddie Jackson, one of the several pieces they have on defense that looks really good. This is also going to be a fun game in terms of the Bears are going to be unique with this offense. They've got some pieces in terms of wide receivers, Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, but you're going to be looking for this team to run the football a lot. At this point, I'm hoping that the Chargers have figured out how to at least slow down the run, how to find their own counter from the run in terms of maybe outscoring or whatever. Maybe Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa get a little bit more involved. Whatever the case may be, we're going to need it versus the Bears. Justin Fields, if you guys were a fantasy football owner of Justin Fields last season, you were grinning ear to ear every single week as he rushed for like 100 yards, right? Sometimes 200 yards. The dude's insane. And I think that's something the Bears are going to continue to lean on. How do the Chargers react to that? I think by this point, they will have figured out something to slow down to Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields himself might still have a pretty good day, let's say fantasy-wise, but I think the Chargers in terms of scoring, the Chargers in terms of their defense, of their pass rush in particular, I think they're going to have a pretty decent week. So I'm going to go ahead in the game that I'm going to be attending. Of course, I'm going to hope we're going to win that game, right? I'm going to go Chargers 28, Chicago Bears 17. I think the Bears maybe get off, jump off to a pretty hot start, especially with how they're rushing the football. But as the Chargers kind of figure it out and score themselves, I do think they have a chance of putting this game away pretty well. So I like that matchup. I think it's going to be a really fun one. And I chose this one because it's going to be the Halloween game. Okay, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Next up, moving on to week 9, the Chargers at the New York Jets. You guys catch Hard Knocks yet? I haven't yet, but I heard it's going to be pretty good. And honestly, I think it's because of that storyline of an Aaron Rodgers that you're going to see up there. Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, probably the 3 faces you're going to recognize for the foreseeable future for the Jets organization. This team has really turned it around, man. Last season, you started seeing signs of it, but there were holes all over that roster. You can say that there's still holes here and there, but Aaron Rodgers, you got to wonder what's going to happen. Now, there's a couple of different opinions kind of floating around out there, right? There's the opinion that, hey, man, Aaron Rodgers, a couple of seasons ago, he wasn't looking so hot with the Packers. And just recently, we saw a pretty hype quarterback go to a new team, a lot of hype behind it, and Russell Wilson, that kind of blew up in their face. Are we all too hyped on the Jets? Are we all too hyped on the Jets? Now, I'll say those arguments valid, all right? I think it's very appropriate to say, hey, let's go ahead and pump the brakes until we see something happen on game day with Aaron Rodgers. How does he really mesh with this team? But this is my prediction in this video. And I think, honestly, it's going to be a different situation than the Broncos. I think the Jets are going to be looking really good. I think we've already started to see things really good out of them in camp. And I think, honestly, Aaron Rodgers, he's got kind of an agenda right now, right? Kind of a revenge tour. I think the Packers kind of ticked this man off, and I think he's going to go out there and at least have a couple more seasons where he's pretty dang good. So the New York Jets, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, I think this is going to be a very, very tough week. The Chargers in this one, I'm going to go ahead and predict Chargers 24, Jets 27. A close loss for the Chargers. But again, this could go kind of one of 2 different ways. If you believe that the Jets are maybe a bit overhyped, they're kind of that Russell Wilson effect of, the last couple of seasons with the Broncos, then sure, the Chargers definitely have a chance at winning this one. Me personally, I think the Jets could be the real deal. I think they're going to be one of those playoff contenders that we got to watch out for towards the end of the year, right? We're like, man, we're going to have to beat out those Jets in order to make it into the postseason. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to week 10. Another bit of a softer matchup here. The Chargers versus the Detroit Lions, who I will say are looking better, right? I don't know if I'm completely convinced that they're taking that turn that the Browns did a couple years ago, where they went from the laughingstock of the NFL to now, hey man, they got some moves, right? I don't know if I'm convinced of that, but I do know that this is a much better Detroit Lions team that I grew up with, right? They're much better than they were even a couple of seasons ago. And weirdly enough, I think they got some pieces around a Jared Goff that could work for them. Jared Goff, I think, kind of fell into a better situation, which is kind of crazy because the Lions are a much worse team than the Rams. But I feel like he's just, I don't know, appreciated more. He's meshing more with the offense. I don't know what to tell you, but it just feels like Jared Goff has been decent with the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown may be a big reason for that. He's a breakout guy from last season. He's going to be one to watch out for. I think Aiden Hutchinson is one of the more underrated edge rushers in the entire NFL. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Joey Bosa. I think he's going to continue getting better. But in the end, have the Lions made enough of an improvement where they can take on a team like the Chargers, which right now at week 10, at this point, so long as, again, knock on wood, everybody's healthy, or at least most of the team's healthy, are they going to be able to take on a team like that? I don't know if they're quite there yet, but I do see the transition happening. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a prediction of Chargers 31, Lions 21. I think after that loss to the Jets, a very close loss, I think the Chargers do bounce back very nicely at home. And again, 31 points is kind of, a testament of the bounce back ability of a Justin Herbert, a Kellen Moore, and the team as a whole. Putting the Chargers at 6-3 at week 10, which again is a very, very nice place to be in. It's one where I hope the Chargers certainly reach, because again, it doesn't get any easier as we continue on. All right. Next up, the Chargers. Week 11, another NFC North opponent in the Green Bay Packers. The newly formed post Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers, now featuring a Jordan Love. You got Aaron Jones to worry about. Of course, that running attack is probably going to be leaned on a lot more this season with not a rookie quarterback, but a new quarterback in a very long time. And then Jar Alexander. Kind of like with the Jets, which is funny. It depends on what your view is of this team, especially what your opinion is of Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love could be very, very good, right? Are we going to see history repeat itself with the Brett Favre and the Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love? Or have the Packers maybe dug themselves in a hole by drafting this man and chasing away their future Hall of Fame quarterback? I don't know. My guess on this one is going to be, again, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to do well with the Jets. I don't know if I'm quite sold on Jordan Love, okay? You don't have to be a huge, elite quarterback for the Packers to have some success. I think their defense is very underrated. I think their running attack is going to be very healthy. But can Jordan Love carry this team over the edge to face up against a team like the Chargers? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a record prediction of Chargers 21, Green Bay Packers 17. I think, again, kind of like the Lions, you're going to start seeing maybe some growth from Jordan Love. Maybe you see, some nice moves on the ground by Aaron Jones. But again, I think their defense is good enough to keep the Chargers at bay and keep the game close, but I do think that there still needs to be more growth in Green Bay with Jordan Love before I'm really like, what are we going to do? This team's looking really good. Because I think along the lines of a lot of other pieces on the roster, they do look very good. But the Chargers, I think, match up very well against them. Next up, Week 12, Baltimore Ravens, featuring Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Kyle Hamilton. You guys aren't going to like this. I'm sorry, okay? You guys aren't going to like this. You guys, every season, I feel like the Chargers have that game, all right? They have that game. You guys know what I'm talking about, all right? They have that game where it feels like, what happened? And unfortunately, the Chargers had a couple of those games last season. Given what the Baltimore Ravens are, and to me, the Ravens are a very strong postseason contender, maybe even a Super Bowl contender. As so far as Lamar Jackson can stay healthy, I think they've got all the weapons in the world for him now. I'm a big believer in J.K. Dobbins. I'm a big believer in Mark Andrews, of course, in that they got Odell Beckham Jr. now and Bateman and just all this weapons. And, of course, their defense has some crazy talent all of a sudden, too. They got Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. Just this team's loaded, absolutely loaded. Now, how far is that going to take him? I don't know. I feel like, again, a little bit like the Chargers. We've heard this before. We've seen this before a little bit, and they kind of underperform. But I think this year in particular, the pieces really are there that scare me a bit. And I think this is going to be one of those games where Chargers fans are hoping for the best. Of course, they're playing in L.A., but it ends up being that game. All right. So my prediction, Chargers 13, Baltimore 24, bringing us to a record of 7-4. And probably one of the tougher losses you're going to see for the Chargers this season. I think that defense, as good as their offense is, which, again, I think 24 points might even be lowballing it a little bit. It could be a little higher, like 31. I think their defense is also very good. Holding the Chargers to 13 points, again, kind of a testament to that in my opinion. Next up, another kind of awkward opponent here, okay? But one that, again, I kind of have, a grudge against because the last couple of times we played him, it hasn't been great. This time around, I'm hoping the Chargers can change that narrative. I don't know what to make of the Patriots anymore. They're the Bill Belichick team to me, all right? They're led very efficiently. How far would that take them without the talent that I think they need? Like, without a Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know. But they're the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to be one of those fantasy performers this year that you have to watch out for. I think he's going to definitely be a very good piece of this offense this season. Mac Jones is Mac Jones. They got some pieces on defense that look nice. I know they have Matt Judon, right? And they got Christian Gonzalez now, the new rookie, who, for whatever reason, newer corners look really good in the Bill Belichick system. This team's going to be weird. So I don't know how this is going to go. I'm going to go ahead and give it a prediction, though, of Chargers 19, Patriots 10, a weird score to end on. But I'm hoping that the Chargers finally can, get over that hump and give me a win versus the Patriots. Okay, it's been a minute. Come on, let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's not let Bill Belichick do whatever he wants out here anymore. All right. Next up, Week 14, Chargers, another division rival in the Denver Broncos. If you haven't seen it by now, I'm hilarious. I think the one big thing that I'm worried about with the Broncos is Sean Payton. There's a couple teams like this on our schedule this year. They could go either way. The Sean Payton hype could end up like the Russell Wilson hype. We're all just hyped, and there's a lot of hype and a lot of worry for Chargers fans. Like, oh my God, the Broncos are about to turn that big corner. Or they could be a huge disappointment and all the names are just names and the Chargers crush them. And most teams crush them and they just don't take that step forward like they haven't the past couple of seasons. I'm of the opinion, if I'm going to tell you guys honestly right now, I think Sean Payton is still great. I don't know if I agree with a lot of the stuff he says. I don't know if I agree with his methods or whatever, but I think the guy's gotten results for a long time and I do think he is capable of turning around the Broncos. I just don't know if it's going to happen this season. You ask me next year or the year after, as we start to see development from Peyton and his influence on the team, especially, how the team is run and the offense, et cetera, then maybe that story changes. This season, I think there's going to be some growing pains. But there are things that the Chargers have to watch out for. They have a great defense. They've always had a great defense, a defense that I felt sorry for last season. Like, my God, this team is holding everybody down, but that offense can't move 10 yards to save their lives. I think this season, if I were Sean Payton, I would humble Russell Wilson a little bit by turning him into more of a game manager. Like, hey, man, until you can prove to me that you are what you were, you're not going to be allowed to do much of what you were doing before. You're handing off the football to this man, Javonte Williams, for the most part. And that's what I think the Chargers need to worry about the most. I think Javonte Williams, again, so long as he can stay healthy, is going to be a beast this season. So all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give a prediction here of Chargers 25, Broncos 14. Again, I think Williams, for the most part, accounts for those points, but there's going to be some growing pains, and I think the Chargers, with this new offense of Kellen Moore, are going to have the Broncos circled on their schedules, because that is a defense that we normally have problems with, and I think Kellen Moore is up to triumphing over that, despite our history with that team. All right. Next up, Chargers, Vegas Raiders, second meeting, week 15. How's Jimmy Garoppolo doing by this point? How's Jimmy? By this point, I'm not quite sure. This is going to give Jimmy a lot more reps. We're going to, see the beginning of the Jimmies, and now we're at the end of the Jimmies at week 15. How much growth has he made since then? How much has the team figured out what they are by this time? Are they a pure Josh Jacobs running team, or can they trust Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't know. Since we've already kind of broken down this team already, I'm going to give you guys my prediction. Chargers 28, Vegas Raiders 27. I'm going to go ahead and say razor thin margins here, but I do think it's very important that the Chargers this season, with the Chiefs just winning the Super Bowl, with how tough the schedule is, these division matchups are vastly important. And I think it starts by sweeping the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders, obviously, they're not the biggest threats in the AFC West. That's the Chiefs. But I think after the Chiefs, the Raiders are the ones that I think I worry about the most. If we can sweep them, I'm feeling a lot better about our odds. So this brings the Chargers to 10-4. We're all feeling great. Double-digit wins by week 15. Thank you, director. I'm feeling good. We're all, playoffs are in our eyes. We're excited. Well, let's slow down a little bit, all right? Because the Chargers in week 16 will be facing off against the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. This is going to be a very fun game for Chargers fans. I promise you. Not even just Chargers fans, for the NFL. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Von Miller, Khalil Mack. It just feels like one of those, highlighted games for every NFL fan. Like, man, this is going to be a good one. But this Buffalo Bills team is ridiculous. I do think, again, it's going to be a shootout. We're going to see a lot of points scored. This is going to be a tough one, man. I think the Chargers, again, they're the kind of team that's capable of taking anybody down. This is one of those teams that you're going to have to prove it, right? Can you take down the Buffalo Bills? They're not invincible. We've seen teams take them down last season. Teams that had no business taking down the Bills last season, they did it. Can the Chargers be that team this year? Can they prove to themselves that they're that caliber of playoff team? I don't know. I think it's going to be a very tough one. I think it's going to be a very fun one. I think it's going to be one of the highest scoring games of the season. But in the end, my prediction here is going to be Chargers 37, Bills 42. I think this may be one of the best games called by Kellen Moore this season. I think a lot of points on the board. Chargers fans screaming, hollering, blood pressure's up, anxiety's up. But unfortunately, I think this Josh Allen offense is ridiculous. And I think a lot of it's on the shoulders of Josh Allen. Again, probably one of the best games. It could be one of the best games of the season, regardless of your fandom. I do have the Buffalo Bills just edging us on, though, with a ridiculous score of 42. And that's how highly I carry a team and a quarterback like Josh Allen. But again, at 10-5, you're still not feeling too terrible. And this will carry the Chargers into week 17, where they're going to be facing the Denver Broncos, which, okay, we'll take off Sean Payton, put on Justin Simmons, very good player there. Very similarly to what I was talking about with the Raiders. If the Chargers facing the schedule that we're facing the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champs, in the AFC West, we're going to have to prove that we really are for real by sweeping our other two division rivals. So my prediction, 27, Denver 17. This officially puts the Chargers at sweeping the Raiders, sweeping the Broncos, and giving us one loss versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, and then this time it's in Mile High. I get it, it's a bit tougher, but again, if you're for real, Kellen Moore, if you're for real, Brandon Staley, if you're for real, Tom Telesco, if you're real Los Angeles Chargers You need to prove that you can take care of business versus everybody else and try and bring your best version versus the Kansas City Chiefs to try and take this division. I think bare minimum, you got to prove it by sweeping the other division opponents. Now, again, it's not like required in terms of any success, but I think in my mind, you have to be able to handle at least those other teams. Those will put the Chargers at 11-5, bringing us to our final week here. Chargers Week 18 versus Kansas City. This time at home. I'll tell you this, guys, right now. If the Chargers at home, which we've done before, right, in the Patrick Mahomes era, if we can take down Patrick Mahomes, if this defense can pull it together, if the offense can pull it together, if we can have another Mike Williams miracle game, if we can have, Quentin Johnston go off, if the Chargers find a way to edge out the Chiefs just before the playoffs, right, maybe even the Chargers are within spitting distance of the first place in AFC West, this could be a crazy, crazy week for Chargers fans and for the NFL. Who's taking the West? Have the Chiefs slowed down a bit where the Chargers at 11-5 can maybe overtake them with a win here? Maybe. I don't know. It could be crazy. But again, that's the turn that we're all waiting for every year. Can the Chargers finally overtake the Chiefs? My prediction here versus the Chiefs in Week 18, a very good game. A lot like the Bills. Chargers 30, Chiefs 31. It's a little worrisome. And I'll tell you guys that, in my opinion, real teams need to take down real teams. Does that make sense? The Chargers, they need to take down the Bills. They need to take down the Chiefs. They need to take down one or the other. They need to do something in terms of taking down these real teams. And in my predictions, I have them falling just short. But that's the thing, just short, right? A loss by 1 point in Week 18, which I think, again, well, that would be hard to stomach, but that tells me that the Chargers are very close to turning that corner. What did I have the Bills? Actually, I have to go back really quick. I had the Bills just dropping it by 1 touchdown, by 1 score, right? Let's be real. The Chargers, if they can prove that they're a team that can beat a real team, a real Super Bowl contender, then I think we're in for a very special season. I'm hoping that they're able to take that turn themselves. This puts us at a record of 11-6, a final tally for the season. The Chargers, let's go ahead and turn this up here. The Chargers season total 11-6. They are playoff bound. I have them second place in the AFC West, 6th seed in the playoffs, and Justin Herbert gets another shot at trying to grab a playoff win this season. I think he's very capable of that, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough year, Bull fam. The schedule, very tough, but I do think this team, this offense, some of the matchups here, it's going to be very entertaining nonetheless. And I do think the Chargers, in this season in particular, with the roster that they have, the new leadership on offense, the growth on defense that we've seen, this is the year you kind of prove it. And I feel like this schedule, funny enough, is the kind of schedule that we needed in order to prove it. Last season, it was soft. It was especially soft at the beginning, right? This season, I feel like we get a couple of breaks here and there, but for the most part, it's consistently tough. It's consistently brutal. And that's the kind of test you need to take it, not just to the postseason, but to the Super Bowl. And I think that's the kind of test the Chargers need right now with the roster that they have. And the year that we're going to be having with Brandon, this is the prove-it year for a lot of different things, guys, especially at head coach. I think 11-6, I would be happy with that. They got a shot at the big game. They're playoff bound, and I think they have all the talent to go out there and try that second attempt to take down those real teams like the Chiefs, like the Bills, like the Ravens, right? It'll be very interesting. Well, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of my record predictions. Give me your record predictions in there. Let me know if you would change anything that I had previously stated here. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Make sure to hit up Underdog Fantasy, hit up ExpressVPN, hit up all these things to support the channel, guys. Thank you so much. And also, Little Birdie told me a little bit of announcement here. If you guys want to catch some fun conversation after the preseason game on Saturday, you might want to check out Bleacher Report for maybe an appearance by a, I don't know, an anonymous director. We'll have to wait and see. All right. So, again, I don't know how much I can officially announce right now, but definitely check out Bleacher Report in that post game if you guys want a fun time. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll catch you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. It's going to be a good season, Bull fam. I can feel it.